It's Dr. Jason West, and it's our weekly live cast. And we're doing something just a little bit different this week. It is talking about fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, and some ideas and suggestions that people can do at home when they're faced with this affliction, and just kind of announcement how we're doing our new excitement and our new podcast. So welcome to the program. We're going to get right into it and talk about these different problems and it's just no fun to have either one of these, either chronic fatigue or fibromyalgia. And they're the same and they're different. So in tonight's program, we're going to touch base on this. And then I got to give everybody a heads up. I have been working with my team. A big shout out to my team leader that's been with me 14 years, Misty, saying, hey, here's some ideas on how to improve what we're talking about. And so it's going to be a little bit different program because we're doing a more interactive, better system for doing those. I just want to give a big shout out to one of my friends and who's been with me the longest, Misty. So anyway, that being said, you guys, a quick little bit of housekeeping and stuff like that. Number one, a big shout out to my sponsor, the West Clinic. It started in 1915 by my great grandfather, and then my grandpa, and then my dad, and then me. So a shout out to where I work and my entire team over there that allows me to be able to fulfill the purpose of being a doctor, which is docere. What does that mean? That's a Latin word root to teach. That's what doctors are. They should be teachers. And so I get to teach and share with people the things that I learn every day working with normal everyday people, with kids, with moms, with dads, elite athletes, superstars, movie stars. Believe it or not, they come to the little megatropolis of Pocatello, Idaho. And so big shout out to the West Clinic. Also, my sponsor, and I need my assistant, Jordan. Jordan, are you around? Need help to be able to show that. So Jordan's over there helping and do this, be able to have a sponsorship with POTC. So what's POTC? It stands for personal organs, tissues, and cells. And the POTC says that if we fix the cells, this is, I think, the most important thing that we see in healthcare. If you fix the cells, then you fix the organs, then you fix the tissues, and that everything gets put together like that. So I'm so happy to be able to help them and have the sponsor with OTC. So with that being said, those are the two sponsors. We're going to talk about chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia. I do have to do a quick shout out also to my mama. My mom is like my dad was smart, but my mom was off the charts, and she had a little accident happen in her house. And so what happens is we needed to help her with some mold. So my assistant Jordan's here. So Jordan, I need to take a seat here, but I need an OTC bottle. So if you guys need something, we can help with getting some things organized. Jordan's on camera. I'm actually going to have him pop in and say hello. Just wave to everybody, Jordan. So there's Jordan. Hey, he's helping me do the program and helps take notes and everything like that. But going back to my shout out. So my mom had a little flooding incident and is having some mold problems. So I've dedicated an upcoming show to black mold, to candida, and fungus. That's going to be coming up in a couple weeks. I'm doing a bunch of preparation, everything to talk about that. One, because everybody's asking me about it, and two, my mom's saying, hey, I need some help with some mold stuff and everything else. So Jordan, if you'll get something to write on and just want to get ready to produce a show in a couple weeks about black mold, fungal toxins, candida, candidiasis, because by the way, you guys, it has a huge impact on chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia. And so last week, matter of fact, if you haven't seen the summary, you need to go to drjasonwest.live. This is a free summary. You can see the past shows. You just have to register. There's a free ebook over there, but you need to see part 1 of the chronic fatigue syndrome, because that's where we talk about the most common cause and outline. You can see that replay for live. That's how you get access to that. And we're going to be building on that because if you're tired all the time, then what happens is your motions are off, your muscles hurt, your joints hurt. And then what happens is you don't feel very well. So they kind of go like this. So in a couple of weeks, we're going to do mold, candida, black mold, fungus, and the best ways to evaluate them. And then there's some specific treatments for that. This week, we're talking about when your muscles hurt all over. And again, so fibromyalgia, I want to do chronic fatigue first because if you're hurting, it's easier to be in pain. And if you're pain, it's easier to be tired. So it's like this vicious loop. So many times, like it's a dual diagnosis, chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia. So that being said, usually every single week we put together an ebook. And this week, because of Misty's suggestions, we're revamping our whole university in time. So there's a book coming out. There's also part 1, part 2, part 3 of fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue that we're all putting together that is coming weeks. And then at the very end of this, we're going to be doing, again, what happens when you put yeast into a warm, dark environment with a little bit of sugar. It tries to ferment. And when it tries to ferment, what happens is the muscles feel hungover. That's exactly what happens with fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue. Basically fibromyalgia. Like if I go to the gym and I start doing an exercise that I haven't done and I run out of oxygen, guess what? Instead of having oxygen as the final electron acceptor, what happens is it goes into anaerobic glycolysis. The byproducts are acid and pyruvate, and my muscles start to get sore. When I improve my oxygen deficit, so translation, when I'm away from the gym and I get oxygen in the system, what happens is the muscles return to normal. Well, people that have fibromyalgia feel like their muscles hurt all over all the time. And I have a lot of empathy for those. So let's talk about how to help fibromyalgia. And this is how we talked about how to help chronic fatigue last week. Blood tests, making sure that we rule out infection, either a chronic bacterial infection or a chronic viral infection. This week, talking about fibromyalgia, and then a big shout out to my assistant, Misty, of like, hey, we're revamping the program with some really cool resources. Okay, so fibromyalgia, muscle fibers are all over. There's no blood test for this. There's no x-ray. There's no MRI. There's no imaging for this. But I'm going to have Jordan come over here, and I just need your back, Jordan. So pull your chair this way and put it right here, because this will be a good thing. Now to face that way. Okay, so I'm just going to show you so real quick fibromyalgia. There's supposed to be 17 tender spots on different parts of the body. There's charts and stuff that you can look at. But this is probably the universal way of diagnosing fibromyalgia is you want to get 20 pounds of pressure on these spots. If more than, I think it's 11 of them are positive, then there's fibromyalgia. So how much is 20 pounds of pressure? Like if you put enough pressure on the thumb for the thumbnail to blanch, to get white, that's about how much it is. So you have these different spots that you can go to. And yes, you're going to feel pressure if you're normal, but if you have fibromyalgia, you're exquisitely painful. So I'm using, Jordan's, he's donated his body to science. You guys can't hear him yell and scream, but he's yelling and screaming. Anyway, Jordan, thank you for doing that. That's the way that you diagnose it. But so many different people, what they have is undiagnosed fibromyalgia or not properly diagnosed fibromyalgia. It's kind of a garbage pail diagnosis. So what happens is the doctors will say, well, you don't have lupus, you don't have RA, you don't have Sjogren's, ankylosing spondylitis. I know you're hurting, so therefore you have fibromyalgia. Now, as we're getting ready and we're revamping a new platform, one of the best ways to help fibromyalgia is anything possible to increase oxygen levels. I think this is the number one way to do it. So one of the best ways to do that, stretching, hyperbaric oxygen is really, really helpful. It's one of my favorite recommendations for chronic fibromyalgia is hyperbaric oxygen. Rectal insufflation therapy, which is basically a home enema system with oxygen. And so it's socially awkward to talk about, but it really helps people. And and then water. So water is underrated. I talk about it every week. People are like, well, I want like better stuff. You need more water. That's what you need. And then here's a couple things that are really important. I love the magnesium, the miracle mineral. Magnesium is so important. It's a cofactor for 300 enzymatic reactions. We got to do a blood chemistry workup to help with fibromyalgia. And then we talked about this already. Stretching, lymphatic massage is really good. People with fibromyalgia, it's so difficult for them to move and to normal activities. So usually I tell people, look, if you'll move more and exercise, then it's going to be a lot better. I apologize for getting a computer notice, and you had a beep that just happened, but it's not really reasonable to tell people with fibromyalgia, go exercise a bunch. It's not possible. So if you can stretch the muscles, hyperbaric oxygen, rectal insufflation therapy, magnesium. I love to be on magnesium. I like about 400 milligrams a day is what I feel really good on. The other one that really helps with that is vitamin D and pain. Now, all of this is coming out in the book that we've created that Misty's given me a ton of input on. I couldn't get it ready for today's show. I also want to give, I forgot, I got another shout out that's going to help this program to be better. And that's Macy. Macy's been my assistant for years, and she had some maternity leave. She brought this beautiful little girl into the world, and she just started back up with us, that she does all of our follow-up and questions and stuff. I'm so happy to have Macy back. So if you're just joining the program or looking at the recap, a couple things that are happening. We're revamping our program to talk about better resources, information. We've got a really neat ebook coming out on fibromyalgia and chronic fatigues, parts 2, 3, and 4. We've got a mold program that's coming up in a couple weeks. It's the tail end of our chronic fatigue program, because if you have some things that are mold, like if you have a moldy environment and you're being attacked by black mold, by candida, by fungus, it's really hard on your immune system. You can't keep up, and then you get chronic fatigue and you get fibromyalgia. So that's a really important consideration. I get a bunch of questions about that all of the time. And then the other thing that's happening, sorry, I've got a hair on my nose or something, is that how we can help the immune system to keep up. So really quick, mold things as a quick oversight. You guys check out caprylic acid, check out oil of oregano. Also, a pectin is a really cool binder. That's the stuff that you put in jams and jellies. There's a medicinal pectin that's really good that we're going to cover that's coming up. And then I love stretching for fibromyalgia. It's more reasonable recommendation than pure exercise. Okay, so with that being said, we're setting the table for a revamp thing. We're going to be talking about the different things. If you're having fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue and you haven't had any recent blood tests, and that's one of the best things that I recommend, a metabolic panel and a blood cell count with auto differentiation. If you'd like to engage more with a clinic, the best way to do it is to see the whites of your eyes, where we can actually interact and we can talk and we can go through some things. If that doesn't work, there's always a virtual office visit pathway. We have a different couple ways where we can help people across the street and across the country to be healthy. We can design protocols at home. We can do targeted medical nutritional therapy. And in advanced cases, we actually will create the protocols to take to the healthcare provider, provided that he or she is open to some input from the megatropolis of Pocatello, Idaho. I mean, I consider this the center of the universe, and everybody's out there laughing because I'm the only one that thinks that, but I love my little town. And so with that being said, we are laying the table for an awesome end of the year program education. If you've got fibromyalgia, consider these things: caprylic acid, magnesium. Again, my dosage for that, where my muscles feel really good, is about 400 milligrams of magnesium. I particularly like magnesium lactate. That's my favorite thing. By the way, the resources that I'm talking about, the chronic fatigue book, is over on drjasonwest.live. It's actually an ebook and resources, and we talk about if you need help with supplements, this is where you pick it up. And it's really important that you pick up, if you're going to continue on with this next week in our advanced chronic fatigue fibromyalgia class, please pick up section 1 or part 1 of the chronic fatigue program. We see that all the time. The other thing is what we can do is stretching, hyperbaric oxygen. If you have access to an ozone machine, rectal insufflation therapy, I've seen really good outcomes with this. And then the other thing that we want to make sure is water. When people say, how much water am I supposed to drink? I've seen really good outcomes improving water function and water hydration and magnesium in cases of fibromyalgia. It's not the total cure, but it does seem to help. So you guys get ready for a huge thing that's coming up later this year. Jordan's here, Macy's back, Misty's getting input. I'm so happy to be producing this stuff and teaching people. If you need help, please check out the westcliniconline.com. You can see what the first visit's not. You can see what is my passion for healing our team. There's also a schedule consultation if you'd like some additional help. If that's impossible for you, check out those different things. I'm Dr. Jason West, and we'll see you guys next week.